Context. A viewer who hasn't played Monster Hunter mentioned how the game reminds him of Guild Wars 2. I highlighted the similarities between two games but made sure to point out that Monster Hunter is not an MMO. To my surprise, some of reviewers claim that Monster Hunter is indeed an MMO. In my stream, such blasphemy is referred to as a volcanic take. The following conversation took place on my stream at twitch.tv/Charlie. No, you're not listening to this at 1.5 speed. Or are you? Did anyone play Guild Wars? That's what Monster Hunter reminds me of. Yeah, I played Guild Wars a bit. Guild Wars 2, no. Did I play Guild Wars 2? No, I think I only played Guild Wars 1. Played it a little bit, not for that long. It's quite different though. I mean, Guild Wars is a full-on MMO. This is not really an MMO, or not an MMO at all. Is it MMO massively? Yeah, but this isn't massively multiplayer online. Like you're limited to. This would be an MMO if I could go out into the world and just see players doing their thing, like just fighting. But you have to summon players in, and when you have the lobbies, you have the lobby can only be 16 players max. And then when you go on a quest, you can only go on a quest with 4 players. So yeah, it's got MMO-like features, but it's not a full-scale MMO at all. It's quite far away from that. There was a Monster Hunter MMO called Monster Hunter Frontier, which played a lot more like an MMO. But even then, it's not like World of Warcraft or any other MMO that you would think of when you think of the phrase. It is an MMO, just not a WoW clone. What, Monster Hunter? I don't think you can't call Monster Hunter an MMO. It's objectively not an MMO. There's far too many there's far too many like components that an MMO requires to be called an MMO that Monster Hunter does not have. Which is okay, right? Not every game needs to be an MMO. Where am I going? I'm going to the wrong place. I'm autopiloting to the volcano. PBMO, pretty big multiplayer online. Yeah, something along those lines. MMO only requires... No, that's not true. That's not... Linguistically, yes. Massively multiplayer and online. Linguistically, yes. But colloquially, that's not how the phrase is used, right? I remember there was a guy that I got into a discussion with, and he was telling me that League of Legends is a RTS, real-time strategy, like StarCraft. And I'm like, no, League of Legends is a MOBA. And he said, no, it's an RTS. I'm like, no, it's a MOBA. There's a reason why everybody and their grandma, nobody calls League an RTS. There's a reason why we call it a MOBA. And then he goes, well, League of Legends, you play it in real time, and it's a strategy game. And I'm like, by that logic, you can call Call of Duty an RTS. You play Call of Duty in real time, and there's some level of strategy to it. So what's stopping you from calling Call of Duty an RTS? And he's like, oh, yeah, true. Like, yeah, colloquially in gaming language, there's a reason why we have certain titles for certain genres of game, even though there may be some commonly shared aspects of the game that other games have. That's why for an MMO, just because a game is multiplayer and it's massive and it's online, that doesn't mean we call it an MMO. That's like saying it's not an apple pie unless it has cinnamon. But technically an apple pie only requires that it is a pie and contains apple. I'm sure that analogy has some merit, but I think based on what I just said earlier, that you... Find me others who call Monster Hunter an MMO, and then maybe I will take your argument a bit more seriously. Until then, it's clearly not an MMO. Like, that's not how people use the term. And it's fine. Like, not everything has to be an MMO. Yeah, exactly. Definition versus practical use. Like, it's just colloquial language. Like, colloquially, how the language has changed by the way the community has used it has brought about a new understanding of how and when we use the phrase. But if you want to go by the technical definition, is the game multiplayer? Yes. Is the game online? Yes. Is the game massive? Yes. That doesn't mean we should call it an MMO, colloquially speaking. You think I'm peeling grapes? Right. I will take that as a concession to my argument. But yeah, for me, like, the example I gave with the friend that I was speaking to, who was trying to call League of Legends an RTS, that conversation applies here. Like, sure, League of Legends is played in real time, has strategy. That doesn't mean we call it an RTS. StarCraft is an RTS. Command & Conquer is an RTS. Like, we have a genre. We understand what games we call RTSs. What would be the difference between an MMO and an MMORPG? It's synonymous. We just say MMO because it's short for MMORPG. Because I feel most games have an RPG element now. Yeah, MMORPG is the full phrase, but because it's just 3 extra letters that you don't need to say, people just say MMO. League of Legends was designed based as an RTS that was modded into a MOBA. Yeah, I'm aware of that, but you only control one unit. You could call it real RTT, but not really an RTS. But that depends on how you're using the word strategy. Strategy. Why does strategy need to involve multiple units? A strategy could be how you strategically control a single character. No, if you want to go by the meaning of the word strategy does not mean or require multiple agents to be controlled at one time. So that wouldn't work. You know what I mean? So, like, going by the argument, calling it a thing. Oh, I'm going the wrong way again. To call it a thing because of how the words apply to it, you would have to conclude that a person should be able to say League of Legends is an RTS because how they define strategy is not limited to controlling multiple characters. You can control a single character and apply strategy to it. Wouldn't a card game be an RTS? Exactly. That's why it's a stupid argument that my friend was making. Like, if we're using the phrases in this way, then you can apply any title, any genre to any game because it loosely fits, or it fits. It has some component of that aspect, right? By that you could say Street Fighter is an RTS because there is some strategy behind decision making, right? It just becomes vague and pointless at that point. Strategy is planning or preparation. Tactics is how you change based on real-time elements. Card games are all tactics. You can apply strategy to it, but it's tactical. This is semantics. Like, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I'm saying it's semantics because somebody could just argue that deciding, okay, if you're playing Hearthstone and the enemy has 5 monsters on the field and you have a board clear in your hand, right? You have a board clear in your hand, you could wipe out all the monsters, but you know that if I play my board clear right now, he probably has a card that can refill his whole board. So let me play my board clear after he's played more monsters so that I get more value out of my board clear. That's strategy. You could say it's tactics, but you could also equally say it's strategy because you strategically decided to hold your card and play it at a better opportunity. So by that degree, you could say card games are a real-time strategy. In Hearthstone, building a deck is strategy. Tactics is playing the actual battle. I don't think you're understanding. I'm saying that one could argue both. Yes, building the deck is strategy, right? But playing the game can also be an element of strategy as well. Like, and this is the problem when if one uses the phrases in these ways, anybody can define it in a way that fits what they're trying to say. You could say it's a clever tactic to not play Flame Strike on turn 5, or you could say it's a good strategy to not play Flame Strike on turn 5. Both of these phrases work, which makes the entire title of RTS pointless. Do you know what I mean? That's why we should go by the colloquial understanding of what most people mean when we say these words, rather than just what the words factually mean. I was going to use MTG as an example, but yeah, it's only strategy if you plan in advance to never play Flame Strike on turn 5 and you stick with that. I disagree. Like, and keep in mind, the phrase real time comes before the strategy. So even by your logic, the real time component should change that because it's a strategy that you apply in real time, which means that it doesn't have to be gated behind a strategy that you plan ahead of time. If we're now saying real-time strategy, we're saying strategy that is applied in real time. So you see where it gets ridiculous, right? Do you apply a strategy in real time in this game? If answer is yes, then this game is an RTS. It doesn't really work. No, I'm saying, yeah, in the example that I gave, my friend was saying League is an RTS. And I'm saying, no, we go by the colloquial usage of the term, not the literal definition of the words. Because yes, by that logic, League would be an RTS, but there's a reason why nobody calls League an RTS, right? We acknowledge we have the phrase MOBA. We have the phrase MOBA for games like League for a reason, and there's a reason why League is not referred to as an RTS. And it's because while League is real time and has strategy that is applied in real time, there's a colloquial understanding that we save RTSs for games like StarCraft and Command & Conquer. Like, it's just a matter of convenience to help us differentiate between different genres of games. And think about like award shows, like Game Awards, right? How stupid would it be if it's like, oh, and now here's the category for Best RTS. Entry 1, Command & Conquer. Entry 2, Call of Duty. Entry 3, League of Legends. And entry 4, Street Fighter 6. Like, by this logic, all of those games could be placed in the RTS category, which doesn't make sense. Everyone would look at that award show and be like, what are they smoking? Cancel this show immediately. This doesn't make any sense. Yeah, maybe, but maybe League is an RTS MOBA. Okay, right. Whereas the other one is a third-person shit. But you see how we're bordering on ridiculousness now, right? Like RTS MOBA, are we going to add a third one to it? An RTS MOBA MMO, because League is also multiplayer and it's also online and it's a massive game. So are we going to say RTS MOBA MMO? Like, you know, this is going to get longer than, you know, the additional letters in LGBTQIA+. It's just going to start... We're just going to start like steamrolling with all the letters that we're adding, right? The same way MMO is MMORPG to you, they just don't say... No, but MMO is not MMORPG to me. Like, the full phrase for MMO is MMORPG. Like, that is the origin of where MMO comes from. It's not like you have MMOs and then MMORPGs. MMOs are MMORPGs. We just say MMOs because it's faster. It's just a matter of convenience. Cool, you're saying strategy and tactics are different only in when they happen. Strategy is future choose, tactics are in the present. I think that's what you're saying. For the most part, tactics is when you have to act outside of your strategy to counter the circumstance. Strategy is when you plan enough that you never diverge from that. I think this is just semantics. I think you could make the same argument for tactics. Like, you may be right, and like, when it comes to like dictionary definitions behind these words, you may be right, but there's enough, the problem is that there is enough wiggle room to apply tactics and strategy in the same way. Like, the same quality that you're applying to strategy, you could apply it to tactics, and it wouldn't be unreasonable. It wouldn't be far-fetched. That's the problem. I think semantics is. I think it's an important thing to be able to be aware of when an argument is venturing in the realm of just semantics, so that a lot of time can be saved. Because this is pure semantics, and also don't keep in mind, right? Again, the phrase real-time like. There's a reason why real time comes before it. The real time is to adjust. The phrase real time is giving a quality to the word strategy, right? That's why we use the full phrase RTS. So real time is the modifier. So when you modify strategy with the phrase real time, one should conclude that even by what you're saying, discrete, right? That when real time comes before strategy, we're now saying that we're changing the strategy in real time. which equates to how you're defining tactics. So the problem here is that you're taking strategy and tactics nakedly on its own, but in reality, we're talking about the phrase real-time strategy, not the phrase strategy on its own. But yeah, I think the reason why this is important is because if we open up the Pandoras box when it comes to video game terminology, then every video game can be any title, any genre of video game can be any genre, and then what's the point in the genre, right? Like the language becomes meaningless, the words become meaningless if it can just be applied to anything, which is what will happen if we don't understand that there needs to be some common understanding behind what we call an RTS, why we call it an RTS, and what we call a MOBA and why we call it a MOBA. You know what I mean? I've never thought of someone being good at one and not the other. I have a strategy, but have to use tactics to play my strategy in Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't think this goes against what I'm saying though. Like my Dragon Maid deck, my strategy is keep destroying the enemy deck while getting cards onto the field with side effects. But my tactic relies on my enemy's playstyle and deck. But again, we're talking about the ability to change one's strategy. A tactic might be changing this decision, like making this specific decision versus that decision. But a strategy could be changing your entire strategy, deciding to change up the next 3 or 4 moves. But either way, I still think you guys have to contend with the fact that we're talking about real-time strategy, not just the word strategy. Right? You have to wrestle with that, because RTS is a phrase that we're analyzing, right? Not just a word strategy. But yeah, I don't know. I think this is like, I almost think this is non-debatable. This is like to me this is an open and shut case. The moment you realize that by this logic, any game can be any genre, that should be the closing of the door. Like, inside that door is crazy town and meaningless language. So that door should be closed, and then we can go into a room where it's a bit more interesting to discuss things, you know? You need a Discord or ban emote, like Irrelevant, right? Irrelevant did that quite a lot. Discord or get banned. I'm not ready to do that yet. Maybe in the future. That could be fun though. Just say pause. And we've come full circle. League of Legends is an RTS. Pause. Like, okay. I guess now we're really pausing anything. But yeah, I think I'm quite interested in this topic because it leads into a further can of worms. Because I think nowadays, people are not careful. People are not thoughtful about... I'm not saying you people, by the way. You people? What do you mean you people? A lot of people are not very careful about how we use language because it's very important, right? And it gets into the whole, you know, not to get into like a super deep topic, right? But, you know, like with the whole Palestine thing, some people say it's a genocide, it's an apartheid, it's this, it's that. And it's like, whatever you fall, whatever you believe in, you better be able to defend your usage of the word, because it's quite dangerous if you're unable to defend it and you're just throwing out really serious, dangerous words to apply to a scenario, right? It's important that we understand, why are we using words like apartheid or genocide? Like we need to really know and be sure that we're using the right terminology. Otherwise, we just bastardize the language and then everything is nothing and nothing is everything. And I think that's a really dangerous place to be. Like honestly, I actually think that's really terrible. Yeah, genocide gets thrown around a lot. League of Legends is, to me, is salt genre. Yeah, probably for the best. That is a... I don't even play League, and I'm aware of it being notorious for having the worst community or creating the most salty players. It's like when I learned that, like, there's a tangible difference between murder and killing, right? Like, there's a reason why the word murder needs to be used for specific circumstances versus killing, because there is a meaningful difference between murder and killing, right? There's a reason why if two armies go to war, there's a reason why you would say the two armies are killing each other. We wouldn't say the two armies are murdering each other. You might say it to be colorful with the language. Like, let's just say you wanna describe how unjust and how horrible war is. You might use a word like murder to just describe how crazy the war is. Like, you know, this war is full of two opposing sides just murdering each other left and right. You might say that, but it's more accurate to say the two soldiers are killing each other, because murder, the definition of murder is that there's an unjust killing, right? We say murder when somebody was unjustly killed. That person was murdered. But with two warring soldiers or two warring armies, like that are just straight up fighting each other, fair, like gun against gun, soldier against soldier, there's no unjust killing there. There's no murder there. There's just two people killing each other. You know what I mean? There's an important distinction to make. The messed up part is that most people disagree with the words used, not the concept put across. Yeah, language sometimes gets in the way when it's meant to be a connection of the brains. Yeah, that's the irony to it, right? It's like we have language to be able to try to understand each other, or increase the odds that we understand each other as perfectly as possible. But then when we have, and this is why it gets even more dangerous when people have different definitions for words that have clear definitions. Like if one person defines genocide as A and another defines it as B, but we're both using the same word, that's a whole other can of worms, you know? Like we wouldn't, if somebody killed somebody in self-defense, there's a reason why we would never say the potential victim who killed the person who tried to attack them, we would never say he murdered that guy in self-defense, or just he murdered that person. We would never say that, because killing somebody in self-defense would be a lawful killing, which wouldn't equate to murder. I feel like culturally, at least in the US, we're redefining words badly all the time, 100%. The word literally is now being used to mean figuratively. Yeah, that's true. Perfect example, yeah. Yeah. But I think with literally, it's a little bit different, because I think people kind of ironically use it in that way. Like, they know that literally means literally, but they just use literally to enhance. They use it as an enhancer. But I agree with you that it does get to the point where if we're using literally as just an enhancer, what about the times when we actually need to use literally to highlight this thing really happened? You know, but I think most of the time it's just used as an enhancer. I like using dictionary definition, but a lot of the time it's just a gotcha, yeah. It's like, I mean, I'm sure you've seen this C4, right? Like when in some debates, I think they did this in Fresh and Fit. I've seen this happen in so many like amateur debate circles when they're arguing about language or definitions, and they'll be like, well, in the dictionary, this word means this, according to Webster's. And it's like, when you hearken to dictionary definitions to help you win an argument that is very much about nuance and application of said words in a society or a culture of people that are ever changing and flexible, you cannot just rely on dictionary definition. A lot more needs to go on, a lot more is happening, or a lot more needs to happen to get to the bottom of said scenario. You can't just be like, well, dictionary definition, unless the conversation is what does this word mean in terms of the dictionary, then sure. But if we're having a greater conversation about other moving parts, referring to the dictionary to like win an argument, it's just, I've seen it happen so often. But it devalues